But Brandon, let's end the podcast before we make our picks. This is the last topic we're going into, and we're going back to the NFL draft. I know this is where you like to call home. You like college basketball, but as soon as we start bringing the NBA into it, Brandon goes, we're back. We're back in Brandon's home. We're back in the football side. We're back with the NFL draft. And what we're looking at here is Saquon Barkley. And the thing I want to kind of preface this with is some people might be saying, well, guys, this kind of the topic of could Saquon Barkley fall out of the top 10 kind of sounds like an onside kick topic. However, with this week, spoiler alert, Patrick's going to be on. Actually, when this goes up on YouTube, it's not spoiler. It's only spoiler for our Blog Talk friends. But with the extra topic from Patrick kind of bumping this, and I was like, we need a topic for the Primetime Podcast. We can go over it. And the reason why I bring it up is because the mock drafts that I almost said Brandon, Mark and I did last week, both of us had Saquon Barkley, I believe, out of the top 10. I know I had him at 11, and I had him going to the New York Jets at the time. And if we look at the order right now on tankathon.com, I'm going to use them again for the NFL. Here's who we got in the top 10 picks. Browns, Giants, Colts, Browns, Niners, Bears, Buccaneers, Bengals, Broncos, and Jets. The only two teams in those 10 that I could see going with Barkley would be the Browns or the Jets. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Saquon Barkley, because of the running back position overall, if it's like, wow, he's the best player on big boards, but he's outside the top 10 and falls in the actual draft when we get there.
So I also want to say you skipped a team where I think he could go, and that would be the Giants.
Okay.
But just because they have so many running backs where none of them work for the most part. But obviously we're not here to say where he's going, just could he fall out of the top 10?
Yeah.
And yes, I do think I could see that happening. Because if you have, let's say you've got 3 quarterbacks that go within the top 10. Let's say you have Rosen, you have Darnold, and let's say Allen or somebody else. It doesn't have to be
Baker
Allen.
Could play himself in there.
It could be any third person.
Quarterback X.
So there's 3. There's 3 already. Then for me, let's say, 1, maybe 2 wide receivers go. Then let's say that Saquon Barkley is not the top running back that goes. They want someone who's going to be more, maybe not a shifty, kind of position, more just, solid running back themselves. Not that I don't think that Saquon is, but I'm saying for the sake of this argument and topic. Then you obviously have defensive players. You've got your Minkah Fitzpatricks. You've got your Chubbs, your Bradley Chubbs. You've got him up there. Now we're getting into 7, 8. So he could fall out of the top 10. I'm not saying by a lot. Some people have him possibly slipping to 16, which is, I think, around where the Lions are. 16, 18.
Right now, Tankathon has the Lions at 19. 15, 16 is like Chargers, Packers right now.
Well, Packers could probably use him too. But what I'm saying is that it's very reasonable and logical to think, yeah, he could be outside of the top 10 if you look at it like that. But if you then start to, and this is where you kind of do a crossover with the onside kick, you start to look at the teams that are going to need something like that. And there are certainly teams up there that need a running back, that need someone who's going to be able to be the type of running back that Saquon Barkley is. And as we've talked about on this show before, is that he's not just a running back. The guy can catch the football. The guy can make the moves. The guy can go back there and return a kick. He can go back there and return a punt. He can even probably line up in the Wildcat, throw the football. This guy is so multidimensional. I think it's hard to see him outside of the top 10. But logical is if you looked at everything and you looked at everyone else and then you looked at team needs to say yes, he logically could be outside of the top 10.
Here's what I'm looking at right now, and this is just me. last week, of course, the order was different because this week of games did not happen for our mock draft. But like I said, I had him going 11 to the Jets. Right now, you know what's going to be the big thing with Saquon Barkley that shakes everything up is, A, where teams fall. Let's be completely honest. If Jimmy Garoppolo keeps winning games, that Niner pick could be outside the top 5. They're at 5 right now. Let's say the Texans keep losing. Browns could have a higher pick. Let's say the Broncos keep winning, then they're outside the top 10. What I would say right now is looking at the order on tankathon.com, where I would have him at is 9 through 11. Only because the 3 teams that are there, Broncos, Jets, Cardinals. However, there are teams that could, like, and that's the thing with Saquon, is his ability top 10 worthy. You're damn right. His ability is top 5 worthy. His ability could be number 1 overall worthy, in my opinion. However, you got to look at it in the sense of quarterbacks rule the day. We got Rosen, we got Darnold. He ain't going 1, he ain't going 2. And like you mentioned the Giants earlier, I'll say this is the only thing that would keep him from the Giants is the Giants will probably be feeling trade offers because teams are going to want to pay up for a quarterback if they need one. The only way I think he stays in the top 10 right now is, like I said, if Denver or the Jets took him, if the order was like it is now, he'd be in the top 10. Only way he goes above that, and this is where we're going to bring in the NFL side of it a little bit, is the 49ers. The only reason why I say that is Carlos Hyde, his contract is up at the end of the year. They could decide to say whether, let's say, he wants too much or this or that. Depending on how those talks go, they could say, you know what, buddy, you're gone. We'll just take Saquon. Like, that could happen. So the thing that's going to affect Saquon the most, not just the combine, not just the bowl game, not just this, but what happens with these teams in the offseason.
Well, I think you're absolutely spot on, 100% right. And if you're talking that way, you say San Francisco's doing that.
Could you imagine Jimmy Garoppolo and Saquon Barkley?
Well, I think that's certainly a dynamic duo right there. But how about another team with Indianapolis? You look at them.
Andrew Luck, if he comes back.
If he ever comes back from Europe. I would say, yes, obviously, right there, that's a situation in and of itself. But Frank Gore is on literally his last leg. I mean, he's not going to be around much longer.
I don't understand what it is with Frank Gore, and this is a personal kind of rant right here. When I don't have him on my fantasy team, shocks the world. But once I have him on I didn't have him on my fantasy team this year, by the way. Once I have him on my fantasy team, either drafted or picked it up, he goes, you know what, I'm on Ricky's team. I don't need to play today. And he just becomes a dud. I don't know what it is. Just my Frank Gore soapbox rant is over. I just had to get that off my chest.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm sure you'll go to sleep happy tonight.
I will. I'll sleep a little better tonight.
But that's another thing. Like you mentioned, Frank Gore is a guy who's definitely gonna be moving on into retirement and off to Canton, I'm sure very soon. So that's but then you do look, if Indianapolis, if Andrew Luck is not going to be fully healthy, if he'll ever not be fully healthy, they may be going in a different direction. They may be going quarterback. As Jacoby Brissett, I don't think it would be the long-term solution there. So you always have to be looking, as you and Mark talk about all the time, what's the team with the fit? You know, they may need running back, but they need wide receiver more. They may need running back, but they may need offensive tackle, offensive guard, offensive line in general more so that they can get a running back who can then run the ball somewhere. So it really gets to be interesting there. Tampa Bay, you know, they're another interesting one at currently I think around 8, where you look at them and you wonder.
I was just going to bring them up.
Doug Martin.
He's under contract for another 3 years. I just looked it up.
So he's kind of been their go-to guy since he's been back from his suspension. Jacquizz Rodgers filled in for him, filled in admirably for the most part. But do they want to go in a different direction? I mean, just because he has 3 years doesn't necessarily he'll be there for the next 3 years. They could trade him. That could be, part of some package possibly for another pick. Saquon Barkley could come in and just be more of a dynamic threat in the backfield and kind of all over the field. But again, they're staying inside the top 10. Cincinnati, they don't need one. Chicago does not. Denver could not. San Francisco, like you said, probably does. They really don't have a very good backfield situation right now.
It really depends to me what they do with Carlos Hyde. If he comes back, then no. But if he doesn't, then sure.
But I think after this season, though, Carlos Hyde hasn't been all that explosive. Especially in his last couple of games, he hasn't seemed to be all that explosive. Yesterday, he couldn't do anything against the Titans. Cleveland, they need everything under the sun. So it really all comes down to what that team truly feels they need right away in the first round. Yeah, obviously, you got 7 rounds. But, what do you need right now?
Well, and here's one thing that I was going to pull into this because I'm looking at kind of a two-pronged thing. First side, the NFL side, just to get it out of the way. I'm going back in mock drafts right now. And if you think about running backs, last year we had Fournette, who was a top 5 pick. The year before that, in 2016, Zeke, top 5 pick. Then in 2015 was Todd Gurley. He was 10th overall to the Rams. Then you look at the 2014 draft, which where I'm at right now. The first, and I get that this is different draft class, different players, but it's interesting to go back. You look at that draft class, the first running back was 54th overall in the second round to the Titans. Do you want me to tell you, or do you want me to have you guess? He was a Washington running back.
Go ahead.
Bishop Sankey.
Who
went right after him? LSU running back Jeremy Hill, and then 2 after Jeremy Hill, Ohio State running back Carlos Hyde. Those were your first 3 running backs taken. Now, am I saying that this is going to be like 2014? No. However, when you look at the other 3 before it, it all depends on A, where there's a fit, or 2, and we talked about 2 of these guys earlier, and I'm going to bring them back in. Bryce Love, and whether he comes out, Darius Geis. What if they're on the minds of teams? And what if, let's say, one of them does go to the Seahawks later on? Just the fact that you have 2 guys that are there, teams that are early on in the top 10 could tell themselves, hey, you know what? We've got an early second going on. Let's not use running back here. Let's go with, because like you mentioned, Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to be around. If you're there, he's going to be a top corner you can take. Derwin James will be around. Do you want a top safety? Bradley Chubb, do you want that pass rusher? Quarterback X, whether that's Allen, Mayfield, Jackson, name your quarterback there that goes after Rosen or Darnold. The top 10, I think, is going to be very like, all right, what do we need? And if you feel like these 2 are going to be there, you know what? Let's not go with Barkley because we'll go somewhere else. And I feel like we can get just as good, not just as good, but I feel like, we can get Bryce Love and he can fit the same hole as Saquon Barkley.
And I think that one of the things you mentioned in there was with Darius Geis, if he's coming out.
Yeah.
Is Darius Geis going to come out? Is Josh Rosen for sure going to come out? Is Sam Darnold for sure going to come out? If they both stay, chaos. But if they don't, then I think we're starting to get to be where we believe we are right now.
I'm going to say this right now, and maybe this isn't the podcast to make this declaration, but if Rosen and Darnold both said, nah, I'm staying, Baker Mayfield's your number 1 pick. Baker Mayfield will then be the number 1 pick. That's just what I like. Just hearing you say, because in my mind, I'm like, hey, Cleveland needs a running back. But after watching DeShone Kizer yesterday, do you really think he's the answer? I even thought he was the answer since he stepped into the door.
I was watching, NFL Red Zone yesterday with my dad, and I looked at my dad and I go, gosh, he stinks. He's just not good. I mean,
and I kind of feel like you're a guy who pulls for him just because former Golden Domer, you want him to do well.
Well, and because I felt that coming out of college, this guy was going to be good. And then I thought, going to Cleveland, you're just ruined. But not only is he just ruined because he's at Cleveland and they are bad. They're just bad. But he has had times. They have had games where they could have won those games this year.
The Packer game.
That's one of them. The game against the Jets earlier this season. I possibly one of the Baltimore games. Or no, Pittsburgh. I think it was Pittsburgh earlier this year.
Yeah, 21. That was I want to say that was that Kendall Wright who dropped he's either Wright or Britt who dropped the ball.
Probably Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
But
I think he was the one that dropped the ball.
But also, you take a look, and Kaiser has thrown so many interceptions on crucial drives or crucial plays at crucial moments.
Could have beat the Lions too.
He's just kind of screwed things up for him. And I don't want to say that it's all on him because it's not. But he has made so many poor errors this year. Everyone is saying they're still looking for a quarterback, including the Cleveland Browns. And so that's where you think Cleveland, if there's an opportunity to go quarterback and they've got one, they're going quarterback right away because they then have another pick, just a couple of picks later, they can go get another person if they'd like, offensive, defensive, whatever it may be. So it doesn't have to be, right away. That's also where I think that Saquon Barkley could still be in the first round because let's say Sam Darnold's in, they go Darnold number 1. Let's say Saquon Barkley's there, they go Barkley number 6. I highly doubt they'd be going quarterback and then running back right away. But in case they did, you could possibly have that happen. But honestly, Ricky, I think that you're absolutely right. If Rosen and Darnold were to both stay in, which I don't see that happening, but if they did, again, that would just be completely ridiculous. I think Baker Mayfield ends up being your number 1 pick, and for that, I hope that doesn't happen because I don't want to see Baker ruined like that.
You don't want to see? Do you think he'd be ruined, as Stewie Griffin would say, by the Cleveland Browns?
Well, I think
it was Bill Polian that said that he'd be perfect for the Browns.
I think that he'd be able to thrive there, just because he's I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he'd probably be able to do good wherever he is. But I guess I think that about a number of different quarterbacks, and I mean, if Tom Brady went to the Browns right now, I don't necessarily know if Tom Brady would thrive or if his career would be ruined forever.
Final thoughts. I want to, because right now I went to look at Mel Kiper, his positional rankings for these guys.
Yeah.
And one name he's got, here's his top 5. These are just running backs. 1, he's got Barkley. 2, he's got Ronald Jones II from the Trojans.
Yes.
Then he's got Darius Geis, Bryce Love. But then at 5, he's got Damian Harris, Alabama. The funny thing, all 5 guys, all underclassmen, could stay.
Yeah.
If they wanted to, could stay. I don't see Saquon Barkley staying, but they all could stay.
No, they could, and that's the crazy thing about this right now is that we're going based off the fact that we assume that they're all going to come out, and they could, but no one's saying that they definitely are yet, I don't believe. So it's really interesting. That's what's going to make this, I think, a really interesting draft class of who all is coming and then who all is going to end up staying in the draft. But I feel right now we're still going to have ourselves a very, very good quarterback class. We're going to see a lot of these quarterbacks end up coming out, and we're going to see an interesting draft. We always do. Last year was a real interesting draft, but it gets you excited for April, that's for sure. Here's
what I want to end it with. Final thoughts, going back to the main question of you're holding a gun to your head. Will Saquon Barkley fall out of the top 10?
No, he won't. He could. Going back to it, he could. But I don't see him doing it, especially even more now than I was at the beginning. Looking at all the teams around exactly where they are could change, but for the most part, Cleveland's going to stay where they are.
Yeah.
The Giants are going to be there, Indy, San Francisco, Denver, Cleveland twice, Chicago, Tampa Bay. Looking at all those teams, I'm pretty confident Saquon Barkley will go in that top 10.
I'm going to say he will. And the only reason why I say he will, you know what? I'm going to say He will. The only reason he won't is if the Browns and the Jets take him. Because here's what I'm thinking. Denver, I believe Brock the Cock-a-doodle-doo, is going to be their starter the rest of the year because I think Trevor Siemian's out for the rest of the year. Paxton Lynch, he's always injured. Plus, go with Brock the Cock over Paxton Lynch. They're going to win some more games. They could be outside of the top 10. You know what? Screw it. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to win out. Win out. They're a 6-10 football team. They might be out of the top 10. I feel like all the teams that were like need a running back, most of them are going to win themselves out of the top 10. So that's why I'm going to say Cleveland or the Jets because I don't think the Jets are going to fall out of the top 10. I think they stay where they are, like 10, 9, maybe fall up to 8. Bengals aren't going anywhere. Bears aren't going anywhere. And especially the Colts and Giants. Giants, I believe they lose one more game and they're solidified the top 2 pick, I believe. Or if they lose and the Colts win, basically they're not going to fall out of the top 10. Is what I'm telling you.
Again, I know this is more of a the onside kick type of comment to make.
Like I said, because of what we're doing, go ahead.
But the New York Giants, who would have ever thought they were going to be at the number 2 overall pick next year? 2-12. They suck. They're so bad.
I'm sorry. It happens every year. And it gets worse every year, too. The kiss of death just claims a new victim every year.
Eli.
I tried to. At least he didn't get injured.
Thank goodness.
Last year it was the Cardinals and Carson Palmer. The year before that it was the Colts. They didn't make the playoffs. And what's funny is each year it's gotten worse. 8-8 the first year, about a 13, 14, 15 pick the second year. Now 2-12, and you fire your coach and your GM. So I don't know. Next year could be 0-16 if the Browns don't do it first. But let's turn it on to you guys. What do you guys think? Will Saquon Barkley fall out of the top 10? Will he be a top 10 pick? What do you guys think? Let us know down below in the comment section.